Good afternoon, beautiful black people. Good afternoon, everyone. I am CJ Lawrence, and you are now live with Black People Be Knowing on Black with No Chaser. And today I have my wonderful co host, attorney Sue Ann Robinson, and also April Love, and the incredible civil rights attorney Lee Merritt, who is also currently running for Texas Attorney General. And we want to thank Lee for coming in and pulling up and sitting down with us for a minute. We know you've been super busy today, particularly with primaries coming up on Tuesday, and so we'll try not to hold you too long, but you know we want to give you the floor to just give us an opportunity to introduce yourself to the audience and get familiar with what your platform is
Okay,
and why
thank
you
you so
running.
much for yes, sir. Thank you so much for giving me a moment on your segment. I want to talk to all of your listeners, anybody who has tuned into the show, and to you specifically about how the Texas Attorney General race will actually impact you personally. Now, many of you all know that I've had the opportunity to represent families all over the country. Suanne and I have advocated for families there in Florida. I continue to represent folks in Philadelphia and in Chicago, and most recently we've heard about Ahmaud Arbery in South Georgia. Some of the historic outcomes that we've been able to achieve, particularly if we look at the case of Ahmaud Arbery, it's because we've tweaked our strategy just a bit to make sure we're putting an emphasis on no, I'm sorry, the Attorney General's office. So after the murder of George Floyd, I got involved in the case for one reason only, which was to work the accountability angle on behalf of the family of George Floyd. And that started with reaching out to the Minnesota Attorney General. He's a brother named Keith Ellison, a former legislator, a dynamic attorney that Suanne and I have worked with across the years. And he happened to be in the right place at the right time. He was the elected Attorney General for Minnesota. Now, his office didn't allow him to get involved immediately, so we had to reach out to the governor, and that's Hennepin County, the county where the murder of George Floyd took place, to allow him to offer them their resources. And Keith Ellison came in with special prosecutors with an abundance of resources and experience. He worked directly with my office, with Ben Crump's office, with Chris Stewart's office, to ensure that there was accountability in that case. And that wasn't the first time that we did that. Right now, we are in the middle of a historic push for accountability in Georgia after the murder of Ahmaud Arbery. We know that in order for Ahmaud to get justice, the law had to change. The citizens arrest statute had to be removed off the book. There was no hate crime statute in the state of Georgia, but a hate crime law was finally passed in Ahmaud Arbery's name. We had federal hate crimes go forward against all three of the men who murdered Ahmaud, and they were each convicted on all federal hate crime charges after they were convicted at the state level for murder and sentenced to life, two without the possibility of parole. Well, that fight is not quite over yet because there were local prosecutors who worked to cover up Ahmaud Arbery's murder, who worked to ensure that there was no justice. One of them was named Jackie Johnson. The other is George Barnhill. And we've been working again with the Attorney General's office to ensure that Jackie Johnson and the legal system that failed Ahmaud Arbery's family are held accountable. And there have been criminal charges lobbied against Jackie Johnson. She's been indicted. That investigation is ongoing. We're looking forward to her prosecution. A lot of times when we see our justice system fails, it's because cogs in the justice system have chosen not to work the same for Black victims as they have for other victims. And so we saw that in the case of Breonna Taylor. And most people understand now that the reason Breonna Taylor's family has been denied justice after so many people stood up and demanded justice across the world was because a runaway attorney general, someone who was in the pocket of the Republican Party, decided that they would not fight for justice for Breonna Taylor. And that was Daniel Cameron, and one of the youngest attorney generals in the country, a Black man, who simply went out of his way to ensure that the jury didn't have the information they needed to bring criminal charges against the men who murdered Breonna Taylor. And so I say all that to say I've learned through my practice how important the attorney general's role is, When it's done well, we can get justice. When it's not done well, communities are denied justice. And in Texas, we have one of the more notorious constitutional violators in the country at the helm of the People's Firm. His name is Ken Paxton. He filed lawsuits against the state of Georgia and several other states to try to overturn the outcome of a free and fair election. He was present with January 6th insurrectionists in D.C. And he gave them the charge that told them to tell them that Texas fights and challenged them to storm the nation's capital, make threats against the vice president's life in order to attempt to overthrow our government. That is who is at the head of the People's Firm in Texas. It's far past time for him to go, and we need to replace him with someone who will fight for the people of Texas. And that includes families like Tatiana Jefferson, a name that far too many of us don't know, killed in her bedroom playing video games with her nephew, to fight for mental health resources to be provided to the people of Texas, to fight to protect women in their rights, as Texas passed laws like SB 8 that allow people to take out bounty hunts on women in Texas. To fight for our public school systems that are under constant attack. And as a former school teacher, a history teacher, a history major from Morehouse College, what's going on in Texas is nothing short of a whitewashing of our history to try to minimize the role of African Americans and to avoid saying anything that makes white people uncomfortable at the expense of a full and so essentially credible education for our students. So a lot to talk about. That's why I'm running. That's why we're in the race. And as goes Texas, according to the New York Times and what I'm seeing from the ground, as goes Texas, so goes the country. So this can be a moment where we work to ensure that Texas it protects all the rights of its citizens, and by domino effect, that as we saw Georgia, for example, turn blue this past election cycle. If Texas joins that wave, the United States changes, and we believe that here is where the fight should be.
Thank you for that, Sue.
My question is, you spoke about Keith Ellison, you talked about Daniel Cameron. For obviously we're attorneys, but for people who aren't attorneys or don't really understand what an attorney general is like in the hierarchy of government, could you break that down a little bit?
Sure thing. So there are just a handful of statewide offices in most states. At the top of the food chain that most people consider is generally the governor. And right below that in the state of Texas is the Attorney General. It's an executive level office that impacts virtually every aspect of Texas life. Now, for urban communities, they typically see the role Attorney General and think child support. And they do play an important role in families' lives in terms of child support and custody orders. But that is just one office within the AG's role. Everything from the economic empowerment of our communities, when we start talking about where loan money goes, how we are able to achieve mixed income communities or ensure home ownership increases within the Black community, something we haven't seen happen since the late 60s in terms of the growth of our home ownership. That all comes out of the Attorney General's office, regulating the funds available to encourage home ownership in inner city communities, bringing down our property taxes, fighting for our schools. The Attorney General is essentially the gatekeeper for justice. They determine what the law says, what it means, and how it should be enforced. And they have resources in Texas. We have resources of $1.26 billion budget. We have it's a huge law firm. It's the largest law firm in the state of Texas, one of the largest in the country, with over 3,000 employees, 750 attorneys, 350 offices all across this great state. And it's supposed to be the people's firm, a place where people can say, I feel like my constitutional rights have been violated in this election cycle. And I spoke to so many elderly folks who were not able to cast their ballot in the state of Texas. 40% rejection rate for mail-in ballots in the state of Texas, up almost 5 times what it was this time in the last election cycle. 40% mail-in rejected ballot rates. Who do we call? Who do those families call to say, hey, I would like to participate in this election. It's my right to participate in this election. But because of my disability or because of my age or where I live, I am being denied access to that. They should be able to turn to the Attorney General's office, and that's the kind of Attorney General's office that we're fighting to secure.
Okay, well, I appreciate that because a lot of times it gets lost as attorney general or prosecutor or what do they do? So I appreciate the breakdown. April?
Sure thing.
Okie dokie. So I heard you talk a lot about the things that are going on in Texas that have inspired you to go for this attorney general position. But I do want to know, why attorney general of Texas? Why not another position? Why not a congressional, position with your national vision and your national platform?
Yeah, no, and that's a really great question. I wasn't simply looking for a role in government, right? And there are very important roles in government: state representatives, Senate. However, my experience is I run a civil rights practice that advocates for the rights of families, advocates for the Constitution. And the truth is, the work that I've been doing in private practice is essentially what the Attorney General is supposed to do. And so I'm not really asking for the people of Texas or for the people throughout the country to believe that I plan to do something other than I have been doing. But I'm asking for the opportunity to expand the work that I've been doing. And we've built up a reputation over the past 10 years or so of advocating for families, of fighting for the working class people of Texas and around the country. And the AG role says, now, what you've got in justice for Ahmaud, George Floyd, and Botham Jean can be amplified. It can be, instead of being anomalies, exceptions to the system, it could be how the system works if we have the right people in place. And so we've seen what happens when the community organizes and forces a justice system to do what it's not designed to do, right? And we've seen that in individual cases. But we can have someone at the helm of the Texas Attorney General's office, the most incarcerated state in the country, one of the deadliest states in the country, one that continues to prosecute people for crimes like possession of small quantities of marijuana, and continues to promulgate a war on drugs that really plays out as a war on Black and brown communities. And instead of tinkering around the edges about, well, you shouldn't have killed this person, or we would like for you to adjust your budget a bit so that your police force isn't so deadly, we can simply take over that office in Texas, where there are more Black votes than anywhere else in the country, where there are 1.8 million registered voters. We have the political power, the people power, to dramatically change the landscape, where Texas is known as a pretty consistent civil rights violator, a place where civil liberties go to die. We can change that narrative once and for all through the Office of Texas Attorney General.
Wonderfully said. Wonderfully said.
Thank you for that, Lee. No, I think that you definitely hit on something that's really essential, in that you've been involved with the George Floyd case, my Arbery case, as well as the Botham Jean case, all of which did result in convictions, which at that time were anomalies. Texas seems to be a hotbed for a lot of these model policies that are coming down the pipe, particularly things like anti-abortion types of laws, anti-voting right laws that particularly target Black folk. And so it would seem that this particular election, your election, even though it's a state election, is one that we should be paying attention to on the national scene for a number of reasons. Can you get into why right now is so critical for this
Absolutely.
election and you as the candidate?
Sure. I'll start with sort of a nuanced discussion about education. And I want people to understand that 1 out of every 10 American children are educated in Texas. It is one of the biggest states in the union. It's where the vast majority of our, and percentage-wise, of our public school system is. It houses some of the biggest school systems in the country. What that means is books, printers, they adjust their curriculum to what Texas demands. And so if this critical race theory myth is promulgated in Texas, it's going to impact what's available in the printed material in New Jersey, in New York, in California, and in Georgia, because publishers are literally gearing their material around Texas. But again, when we saw Georgia turn blue in the presidential election, we knew that the Biden administration would win that election. If we see Texas turn blue at a statewide level, then there is a real fighting chance for this country to move its conversations around governing to working class people, because working class people are proving over and over again, if you continue to ignore our issues and marginalize our communities, we have the voting power and the political will to remove you from office, even in places like Georgia, even in places like Louisiana, where my brother Gary Chambers is running, even right here in the state of Texas, which is seen as a deeply red state. The truth is the margin is around just under 4% in terms of Republicans winning this statewide office or Democrats taking over. And that is without a deep investment from Black and brown communities. If the registered Black and brown voters in Texas alone show up, we easily win statewide. So I heard it said in the Georgia race, Georgia didn't turn blue, it was black. And in a lot of the same ways, Texas will be, the future of Texas will be determined by its Black and brown population, what they decide to do at the polls. And again, so goes Texas, so goes the country. It's the ninth largest economy in the world. There have been a 20% growth in Texas in terms of people coming to Texas in order to invest in the property, to be a part of the growing workforce in Texas. Texas is the energy capital of the world. So as we see conflicts in the Ukraine and in Russia, America is going to begin to rely more heavily on the power producing functions in the state of Texas, in a way that it already has. And so the leadership in Texas, the politics of Texas will impact the culture of the rest of the country.
Dope. Speaking of the culture, how do you feel like your campaign and you being who you are and running for the position you're running for has affected your opponents? I see they're running ads now that says if the Republicans lose, they lose to Lee Merritt specifically, as opposed to, just talking about their opponents in general. It feels like you got them shook. Like, how is that?
Yeah. And so, right now, the Democrat answer for Republican extremism has always been, well, maybe the moderates within the Republican Party will see how far right they've leaned, and they'll decide that it's too far, and they'll join a moderate Democrat. That has been a losing strategy in Texas for the last 30 years, trying to win over moderate Republicans. What they're doing, the concern is a candidate like myself, someone who is unapologetically Black, who cares about civil rights, who is, of course, a constitutional attorney, who believes that we need deep-seated change in our policing. That kind of candidate plays it, of course, into the Republican narrative that, the left in Texas wants to take things a little too far. And so, they've started to say, hey, watch out, because, and they're right about this one thing. What the right is saying, what Republicans are saying about our campaign, is that if Lee Merritt gains the nomination, then he's going to be able to galvanize a base that we haven't had to face in Texas. Texas is not red. Texas is a non-voting state. And so far in the election, less than 3.5% of registered voters have even participated in the primary. Their best numbers are around 10, but with voter suppression, they've been able to reduce the average participation from 10 to 3.5%. If our issues show up in this election in the form of a campaign that is centered all around these issues, and people are inspired to come out and vote, then the Republican days are numbered in the state of Texas, because you have an empowered base who believes that their vote can actually impact things that they care about. And you'll see a lot more people showing up to the polls.
April, you have anything that you'd like to add in this?
Sure. I really love that you keep on saying, so goes Texas, so goes the rest of the country. How do you think your campaign can, you've touched on it a couple of times, how can it serve as a model primarily for the rest of the South, for people like Gary Chambers and yourself who are wanting to take on the good old boy network that is politics in the South? Do you think that you too and you have created a model that people can follow to be successful?
I think the organizing community in the South have been working for years to bring us to this point. We are literally standing at Canaan's edge, where we are right there at the start of a new phase in our movement. So we fought for civil liberties, we fought for civil rights, we fought for equal access, and the laws changed in response to that. But now it's a matter of having people in place who will enforce those laws in a way that is fair and just and serves the entire community. And we've seen, people like Stacey Abrams lead the fight in Georgia. We've seen progressives all over the country begin to take on positions of power or help elect. And this was, I think, our strategy for the last 3 decades or so, was to help elect progressive leaders. Now the new phase is it's on us. We can do it ourselves. We can find leaders within our community who will be better served in those positions because they wake up every day Black, right? We know about their commitment to these issues because it impacts them and their household. And we've seen this in the historic nomination for the Supreme Court, that yes, a Black woman who shares some of our experiences is simply better situated to serve our community than someone who says they will have sympathy for us, right? We don't want sympathy. We want people who wake up with skin in the game. And I think that's our strategy going forward in this next phase of our movement. We must continue to protest and march and organize and stand up for families, but we also must seize control of power seats when we have them, so that those power centers will be beholden to our community. The reason we see business interests and special interests and the NRA winning out in terms of policies in DC and at a local level is because they have helped put into place people who are beholden to them, people that they cut checks to. My campaign is sponsored by 10,000 people from all 50 states who've given on average about $25 to sponsor our campaign. And it helped us become one of the most well-funded campaigns in the primary. Now my allegiance is, well, I have to continue to serve the community that sent me here. And I think that's the strategy going forward.
First, thank you for that. Thank you for that, Lee. I know we've been asking you super serious questions, but really, we definitely want this to be a place where you can relax, let your hair down a little bit, and just chill. Before we do that, I really just want to know what is your campaign info, so that we can make sure we put that up there in case anybody wants to contribute or volunteer between now and tomorrow, and going beyond the primaries, because we're claiming that for you.
Sure. If you go to Lee Merritt, the number 4 Texas.com, that's LeeMerritt, the number 4 Texas.com. You can sign up to donate to Phone Bank today at 6 p.m. We are training folks to Phone Bank to turn out to get out the vote tomorrow during the Tuesday's primary election. The last opportunity to vote in the primary is tomorrow from 7 a.m. to 7 p.m. We're suggesting you get out there early. And if you want to coordinate with our campaign, go to Lee Merritt, the number 4 Texas.com. Man,
look, we ain't going to hold you too long. We know you got a lot to do between now and tomorrow and beyond. And so we're really appreciative for you taking out the time. We hope that our platform is able to help you. We're going to make sure we blast this out everywhere that we can, so that people can understand the importance of why you're running, because it genuinely is my belief that your campaign and the example that you are setting and that Keith has set serves as a tremendous example for a model that we should utilize throughout the country moving forward. And anything that we can do on this end, we definitely support you, brother.
I really appreciate your support. You invited me to let my hair down. What does that look like? Are you going to ask?
Hey, let your hair down, team. Let your hair down. Hey, what? We want you to be able to relax in this setting. I promised you that we weren't going to be as serious as the other places, and I realized once we got started, damn, we had some serious questions.
This is super serious stuff. I mean,
right. Yeah,
we are in the middle. We are in the middle of a historic moment. And the issues that we're bringing up, we want people to appreciate how urgent it is. And so it's hard not to be serious. Someone said loosen up that tie. Yeah, so I guess I won't rap for you. Sue Ann knows where I'm going with this. I will
you got
spit.
bars?
Let's go.
You got bars? Hey, you got it.
So wait, okay, so if you don't know, in real life, Lee was a rapper. I don't know how it is now. I know his skills kind of, I don't know if they're or whatever. I haven't really tapped in to really hear how it's going, but a whole rapper. So let's go, Lee. Don't shame me.
Hey, the floor is all yours. Hold on. No. I'm just getting used to this production thing. Hold on. I'm putting him solo.
I gotta mute myself for this.
Yeah, I'm gonna have to let him go.
I feel like this plays so far into all the stereotypes. All I need is a little watermelon fried chicken.
Hey,
and I am a huge basketball fan.
I make beats, so it's all good.
Yeah. I've been thinking about something that I wrote the last time we went to war in Iraq, which meant I was a teenager when I wrote it. And I've been thinking about it recently because it looks like we are at least considering a military intervention in the Ukraine. And I don't know that is the right or the wrong decision. I think it puts us all in a very difficult place as we start talking about serious things again. But I know what it should not mean. It should not mean the things that are important domestically to us, our classrooms, our access to the polls, women's rights, that they take a back seat. We still haven't passed the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act after George Floyd's murder. We still don't have a significant law to accompany all the protests and change that we've seen recently. So anyway, I wrote a rap about it that back then when I was a kid that I think still applies today. It said, welcome to class, have a seat. Today I'm going to teach about the world, don't speak. This week, at least 2 million kids won't eat. Half of them will freeze in a home with no heat, and it's deep. The world giving havoc to the poor, but the media got the masses distracted by wars. And while we all watched the bombs, 20,000 teenage girls became moms. Today, the paper read, hey, we got Saddam, but the money for education probably not going to come because it was spent on a war we had no reason to fight. While the rich made out like a thief in the night, you see the poor got jacked and even more lost track, and today decided not to buy food and bought crack. Amadou Diallo was shot 41 times, and American court said the cops committed no crime. A few weeks later, the cops sodomized the man with a mop. Until we stand for liberty, it's probably never going to stop. That's why my war is in these streets. Believe it's not in Iraq. I'd rather die here on the block because it's all that I got. And I denounce the Taliban for their attack on this nation. They should be punished for their crime. But I understand their frustration. The CIA should have been punished when they deported Marcus, shot Malcolm and Martin. This is a ship that they started. So please forgive me if I'm unpatriotic, but children are dying needing antibiotics. And I'm getting pushed to the point where it's hard to be loyal because it's easy to buy medicine, but you'd rather steal oil. So if this is liberty, then somehow I missed it, hit with numbers and digits in the formal statistics. You do the math.
Bars.
Hey, bars. Hey, I need to, man. You should have told me. I need a bomb for that. I need the Funk Master Flex bomb for that. I need to drop the horn for that. Hey, that was. Hey, you definitely did something. Hey, next time we beating on the lunch table. You know what I mean? You're doing it like the cafeteria back in the old days at Morehouse or Tougaloo or wherever it was. You know. But nah, man, we so glad to have you, bro. And like I said, we wish you the best, and anything that we can do, we will be doing in order to make sure that everybody knows about your campaign, and why it's so critical right now.
If you're listening to this, become one of our $25 donators. That's not a huge amount of money for a lot of people, or some people even feel like it's not enough. If you feel like it's not enough, give more. However, if you feel like I can do that, your $5 matters, your $10 donations matter. Each one of those from around the country adds up and allows us to put out yard signs, get radio time, buy TV time. Inch by inch is a cinch, yard by yard. It is hard. So we believe what our campaign slogan is that together we are powerful. From our Afro-Latino or Latino community, Juntos Somos Poderosos. Together we are powerful. We need your help.
Beautiful, man. Look, feel free to come back anytime. If you want to come back after you do this thing tomorrow, man, we'll be glad to have you back. But hey, Beautiful. I'm still thinking about the bars that you dropped today, right now. So that's awesome, man. Thank you so much.
All
And
right.
we'll be
Thank you,
having
guys.
you again soon, brother.
Thank you.
Yeah. Blessings. Thank you so much. All right. Y'all
Yeah.
be blessed. Get out the vote Tuesday. Talk to you soon.
All
All
right,
right. Peace.
Bye.
ladies and gentlemen, y'all make sure to get out Lee Merritt. That's LeeMerritt, the number 4, Texas.com. Before we wrap up, first and foremost, y'all, this is our first show for those who don't know out there. Hey, I got Sue Ann Robinson in the house, attorney Sue Ann Robinson, aka not just a lawyer, right? So y'all need to know about Sue Ann Robinson. Also, she's the managing attorney for the Florida division of the Crump firm. Is that correct? Am I
Right.
correct in stating that?
I'm of counsel for the Ben Crump Law Firm. I do handle all the cases in the South region. And it's just a blessing to be able to do well and do good at the same time, as my law partner would say. So I appreciate the opportunity to serve the people. That's what
And we appreciate you, Sue Ann. We appreciate you very much. We're gonna have a lot of fun on this show. Literally, this show is called Black People Be Knowing, and our desire is to do exactly that: share information with the people, educate them, motivate them, organize them, but also just enjoy, time with them. We're gonna talk cash money shit sometimes. I ain't want to curse while Lee was on here, just in case, you know what I mean. I didn't want his opponent to be like he was on a show where they say shit. You know what I mean?
Well, now he still was.
Right, but at least he wasn't on while I was saying
not
shit.
here.
Right, so I let him slide on the shit, but
Yeah.
but no, we're really excited, and we got April Love, who is a policy extraordinaire, and lawyer straight out of Southern Baton Rouge, and Tougaloo, my alma mater. And so we're glad to have Cirillo. Couldn't be with us today. He's with family down in New Orleans. It's Mardi Gras weekend. So
It is.
yeah, he what is it? Let the good time roll.
I spent all that time in Louisiana and I still can't do it.
Right.
Still can't do it.
He letting the good times roll right now. But yeah, April, let me put the solo cam on you and let the people know that, talk to the people.
I'm just happy to be here. I'm happy that we were able to get Lee on the show today. I think that his campaign is not only imperative for the state of Texas, but the entire South and the entire nation when it comes to organizing. And for us to really learn how to organize, he's really infusing the public policy with the legal, with the grassroots. And that's been something that's been just missing in the movement for a really long time. And I'm glad that he's bringing it back in.
Facts. I mean, so, yeah, the ladies that you see before you are not to be played with. They are the truth. And I mean that in every sense of the word. Literally, we have been in the process of just trying to get this thing moving for a few weeks now. There's so many things happening in the world, and I really, I'm excited, and so I want to talk about all of them today.
Right.
But I know we got to take our time. It's so much stuff going on in the world.
Something pops off every single day.
They don't
especially as it relates to Black people.
Right, like last week, we were talking about who they were gonna pick. Did something happen?
We just had a glitch.
Oh, okay. Like we were talking about who they were gonna pick for Supreme Court justice, and now we obviously know who selected. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Yeah. So Sue Ann, you are a Florida native, so I'm gonna let you get into how you feel about the nomination and what it means to you as a Black woman attorney, and April, you as well. I mean, it means something to all of us, I'm sure, but particularly making up 2% of the entire legal attorney population here in the United States of America. What does it mean to you?
I mean, first of all, when people were discussing the fact that they didn't have qualified Black women attorneys, all the Black women attorneys across the country was like, let's not have to get into this with y'all, because we go to the same law schools. Everyone knows, and Black people know that, you know, to be a Black female attorney, to even get into law school, to get through law school, to get out of law school, to survive your first job, your second job, and to build your resume, you have to be 10 times smarter, work 10 times harder, stay up 10 times later, make 20,000 more sacrifices than your counterparts. So to even question a Black woman's credentials that has made it to the point of, you know, being a federal court judge in one of the most important circuits in the country is insane to me. It was insane to all the Black women lawyers. We was like, girl.
Facts.
So,
Speak on it. I mean, you can keep going. I'm when you pointed that out, I'm like, yo, look, I don't want to go in a courtroom without a Black woman beside me. Like, I'm being real. Like, no, that's not hype. I'm serious. Whether it's a murder trial, whether it's a merger, whether it's an acquisition, whether I'm talking business, entertainment, or criminal law, like, I want a Black woman in the room helping us make the right decisions. I've been comfortable with that. I've been successful with that in my career. You know, working with and trusting Black female attorneys. And so the notion that there were Black women that were not qualified for this job or lesser qualified than any other person that they could find, that notion alone was like, that was asinine. That was ludicrous. That shit was ludicrous. So
it was crazy, unnecessary. It was racist and it was sexist mixed together. Like, I was really disgusted. Like, I wanted to like throw up, like just at like seeing that on paper, because I mean, I'm very recently out of law school, and even being recently out of law school, I never thought that I would see a Black woman even come this close to being on the Supreme Court. And that speaks volumes. You know, this is not somebody who graduated from law school in the 70s or the 80s. Like, no, this is somebody who graduated in the 2020s. Never thought I would see anybody who looked like me, you know, on the Supreme Court.
And she got dreads, and her name.
And she has
really,
locks.
We're all taught professionally, like, you got to look like this, or you got to act like this, or you got to conform to be successful. So I think for us, it really just was like, yo, you could be your authentic self and do your thing. Like, con law is one of the most boring classes in law school, and it's also traumatizing. It's traumatizing. It's traumatizing.
You didn't take the right
Which part?
It's traumatizing to
one or
read,
two.
like Plessy versus Ferguson, Brown versus Board of Education.
No,
all that crap is triggering. You're like, what? Whoa!
She like the policy lady has stepped into the room.
No, so I had the most amazing con law professor ever. CJ, you went to one of her conferences at
Was
Southern
it a Black woman?
University Law Center. She surely was a Black
woman.
And so I had the most amazing con law professor ever. I love con law too. Con law 1 can kick rocks. But even my professor for that made that interesting. That's really hard to do. You know, that's one of the reasons why I'm forever grateful that I went to a historically Black law school, because I was taught by a lot of Black women, and they made the topics interesting and relatable. And, you know, to see another Black woman on the Supreme Court who's going to be hearing those types of cases and giving those same opinions as my professors is amazing.
Yeah, Ketanji.
And we gotta stop the con law 2 hate though. Please. Please.
And
it was rough. I cried alone after that class a lot of times, because my classmates, I didn't go to historically Black law school.
Okay.
You know, I was the youngest person in my class. I was one of the very few Black women in my class. And it was just difficult to really process, even though there were historical cases, you know, there were precedent setting. There was nowhere to debrief or decompress, because the questions I couldn't really ask my professor.
Damn,
I could not ask my professor. I had to go and, you know, talk to myself. I'm like, Brown versus Board of Education. Why was the Black kids picking the white doll? What's going on here? You know, I feel good. I don't want to pick the white doll. Who I had no one to really go through that with, other than, you know, the few Black classmates I had. But definitely con law affects Black people. I mean, straight up, all the
I
amendments, everything. That's our class. That's what we
That's
do. That's,
facts. I never thought about it that way, and I maybe the insulation of I attended Thurgood Marshall, so I was at a HBCU as well, and I guess maybe that insulation never occurred to me, like the type of trauma that we experience, even like just reading criminal law cases, reading like consistently reading lawsuits, criminal law cases, particularly con law, and like our humanity being questioned at all times. Literally, them having to make special laws and exceptions in order for us to, legally traverse through this, attempt to traverse or survive in this country is a lot to consume, and I would imagine it would be even more when you don't have this, this large or safe space around you,
Hmm.
a community around you at that time. I never thought about the impact, but I think you hit onto something that mm, you know may need to be even we might need to dig deeper into that at some point for real.
Sue Ann, you made me think of something. Judge Brown Jackson, she attended an Ivy League institution, so she was
double
most
Harvard.
likely in the same situation as you. And to look at her at this point right now, I mean, like, I imagine that she had to go journal by herself after class, after those hard-hitting classes from, those professors that didn't look like her, with her classmates that probably didn't look like her either. I imagine she had to do some of the same things that, you had to do.
Yeah,
And I
Yeah,
think
and
that's
she
really powerful that she's at this point.
and
Yeah,
that
she clerks
it's
for
actually
the judge that she's going to replace. So I can only imagine, having that experience to me and then using it as an empowerment point. Like, yo, I'm going to become the dopest constitutional lawyer ever because this stuff is crazy. Like, I need to make sure, like, that's the power of Lee's campaign. He's like, hey, I'm doing this stuff practically, and I feel like, what's the best strategy for me to use my skill set and what I can do in my experience to benefit the movement, to push the culture forward. So, that's really why everybody's scared of his campaign and why so many people are concerned with her being on the court, because they're like, whoa,
and
she's part of a group that's historically been oppressed. What is she about to come on the court and do? But, I don't think it's going to be a problem.
I think
Oh, it's
what y'all are
definitely not
hitting.
going to be a problem.
I think what y'all are definitely hitting on is why it's so important and critical to have black folk in a lot of, not just black folk, not just skin folk, but people who truly have fought the fight, who, I mean, like they walk the walk and talk the talk in these positions, making decisions on things that matter. Keith Ellison left. I believe he was a senator, or was he with the House of Representatives, United
Um,
States? I think he was a United States
don't make me
House.
laugh.
Like, yeah, like he was definitely um serving in a national capacity before transitioning into becoming the Minnesota Attorney General. Like, I know that for sure. And the reason why it was important is because Keith Ellison is the one that brought the charges ultimately against Derek Chauvin in the George Floyd murder trial, and he also brought the charges in the Dante Wright uh, case,
Mhm.
which further lets us know that there are district attorneys' offices around the country that will still dig their heels in the ground on these cases and not move forward and do their jobs. And so sometimes there are times where the attorney general, if they have the wherewithal and the understanding, um, you have to have them to step in and intervene where people who have been hired to do a job won't do it. And the example of that is one of your cases, y'all's cases, uh, Suann Ahmaud Arbery down in Georgia. Did the attorney
Mhm.
general intervene in that, or who stepped in on that case?
Yeah, the attorney general had to step in because the actual Jackie and her office, the state attorney's office, was just dragging their feet, not presenting the information to police. And I'm a former prosecutor, and a lot of people look at me like, "Oh my God, why did you work for the man?" or whatever. But how I see criminal justice, especially because we have the most incarcerative system, in the world, is that it's a system, and you need diverse perspectives on all levels, judges, prosecutors, public defenders, obviously defense attorneys, in order for it to be fair, or even have an opportunity to be fair. Because if you just have one set of people making all the major decisions in that system, it's always going to be a problem. Granted, I became a prosecutor specifically to be a better criminal defense attorney, but I think, you know, as a prosecutor, you just have so much more discretion in terms of what to charge, who to charge, what sentencing guidelines you're going to suggest to the court, and things like that. And a lot of, you know, Black people go to law school and they're like, I'm gonna be a public defender, which is dope. And Ketanji was a Judge Ketanji Jackson was a assistant public defender in federal at the federal level. So public defenders are obviously very important, but I feel like prosecutors are important too, because that's when you get to really make those decisions. I always say that by the time you need a public defender, you're already in triage. You know, public defenders are in there trying to wrap up your wounds and, you know, make sure the bleeding stops and like get you set so you can get out the hospital. But I feel like a prosecutor has the opportunity to kind of slow that process down. And so if more people, more diverse perspectives actually did that, you know, more Black people went to prosecutors' offices, they could exercise their discretion and, you know, based on their experience.
What I'll say, and I'm glad you said that, and Stefan actually, shout out to Stefan from Bank Black USA, CEO. That's my guy right there. Tapping in with us. I think that what you hit on is really important. I know that in my experience, when I have worked with Black women who have worked for the prosecutor's office, it's when I've had the most reasonable experiences with prosecutors that I've ever had. I mean, because it can be a difficult situation. Sometimes you can be trying a case that you don't even understand how they tried it after they gave you the discovery for it. I mean, like if they looked at the discovery for this case, then you're thinking to yourself, why are they trying this? And they know I'm going to whoop their ass in this case.
I wouldn't have tried it.
Yeah. I mean, and I think that's what a good lawyer does, is they look at the facts and say, you know what? This is not a case worth trying. Let me put this to the side and let me focus on the cases that are worth trying. The Ahmaud Arbery case, for example, and if I'm saying this wrong, I'm saying his name wrong, I apologize. Ahmaud Arbery case. In that particular case, that judge could not have looked at the facts in that case and decided that there were no charges worth pursuing, that no crime occurred. And so the notion that if not for video, if not for you all's national campaign, if not for the galvanizing of Black citizens throughout the country and essentially throughout the world as a result of the deaths of George, Breonna, Ahmaud, and all of these instances culminating at once, it's terrifying to think that these same people that just got convicted for a hate crime we're gonna be free, not even tried for the murder charge, let alone the hate crime charge. Like that's terrifying. We've been, and the thing is we're often told that we don't have a right to affiliate this with racism. Or it wasn't about race. It was just, if he would have just complied, is often the case. But literally, we got these people that are vehement racists based on the facts. And so if you want to talk about that some, Sue-Ann, April, y'all, we can jump into that, and we'll probably wrap up today. But Black People Be Knowing is gonna be coming, y'all. So this is just our, this a little tidbit for you. So
CJ, you said something that that brought something into my mind that went back to something that Lee stated. He said that there is a low voter turnout for the primaries in Texas. And I think that also contributes to, this situation in Georgia where, the prosecutor declined to, do whatever prosecutors do. I've never been a prosecutor, to do whatever prosecutors do. And, that was the DA, right? Okay, so that person is elected, right? So this person that has been elected in Georgia has declined to hold people accountable for what we now know was a hate crime. I think that it really feeds into the importance of voting. We don't vote enough. We don't get out to vote enough. We'll do it for, a national campaign occasionally. But even then, we don't vote enough. And, that situation could have played out a lot smoother if that person was not in office. If somebody who had maybe the same mindset as Lee, even on that level, was in office, who could recognize this is a hate crime, So I think that that's one thing that he said that really stood out, is that there's a low voter turnout for those primaries, and that's the case everywhere, especially in the Black community. We are not going out, to vote. And I get the fear of it. We think that it's kind of pointless sometimes because, oh, it's not going to do anything anyway. But in these smaller elections that are not so small, the local elections, it can really make or break that one person.
I agree. And I think we need to socialize ourselves better and socialize ourselves too, to understand you got to give these candidates, when people are sacrificing their livelihood, sacrificing time away from their family to be in these positions, to be able to assist, you have to donate to these campaigns. Like, we do not understand. It's like, we're quick to go to Dubai and spend money on some Cozumel. And I think that is lit. And I do have a Louis Vuitton purse, like the whole nine of Teflon, all that. But you need to donate to these people who are putting themselves forward to say, hey, I'm committed to change. You got to donate to campaigns. I don't know why or when. We were never socialized. It wasn't in, this is a bill, whatever. What was that show?
Well, I'm Just a Bill on Capitol Hill.
Yeah, they didn't talk about the part that the campaign needs funds. Okay,
Right.
You can't do none of this stuff if you ain't got no bread. The candidates cannot do anything. And
That's
so,
right.
when we have people who are like, hey, I will be your elected official, I will hold myself accountable to you, I will work for you, you got to donate to their campaigns. You have to. That's part of it. Political currency costs money, just like anything else. And so we got to learn to, either if it's saving or giving what we can, just in the same way to political campaigns, so that we have more political currency. And then your vote does matter, because now you have a candidate that's working for you.
Mm-hmm.
That's facts. Those are bars that y'all are spitting. And the thing is that, hey, y'all, if you don't have the means to give, which is understandable, that some people may not have that, give your time, give your platform. If you got a cell phone, if you're on Facebook, share it. You know what I mean? Share it so that other people who are in Texas, particularly, who are voting tomorrow in the primary, will see, oh, we have a candidate that thinks about and cares about these things, someone who has committed their life to the national fight, like literally is on the front line, fighting in this fight against state sanctioned violence against Black people, against crimes where vigilantes chase down and hunt down Black people and are fighting to pursue justice in those instances. We need to support those people in the same way that that they should have been supported during even the movement. We know today that many of the people who were outspoken during the movement at that time were not as broadly received as we might be led to believe today. And so understanding those things, we understand that it's important for us to do our part as well. And our part may be as simple as going to the website and contributing our $25 if that's what we got to give, or contributing our time and holding a sign or knocking on doors or whatever the case may be. But there's a role all of us can play. And also with voter registration, and we'll probably get a lot deeper into this because this is something that Sue Ann talks about a lot of the times. But when you register to vote, you're also putting yourself in position to be a juror, right? And so it's really critical for us to have, like us, when I say us, I'm talking about these Black lawyers up here and the Black lawyer that just left. We need folks like y'all that look like us on juries to be able to think about the things that to be able to identify with Ahmaud Arbery when he was running from those two men, to be quite honest with you, to identify with Breonna Taylor and Breonna Taylor's boyfriend when a strange person was knocking on their door, um, and not even knocking on their door, but kicked in their door in the middle of the night, armed. Uh, we need people who think about those things and, you know, and are rational in how they view justice. Because we've been in a constant pursuit for it for the 400 years that we've been uh, in this nation. So um, that's where I'll leave it. I will pass it to the ladies.
I think
If they want to,
I think that was perfect. I think that was
I
perfect.
well, look, y'all, this is our first episode of Black People Be Knowing. We are so grateful that you all stuck around and hung out with us for a while. We're going to be available on YouTube at Black with No Chaser TV. We're going to be available on Facebook at Black with No Chaser. We're going to be also available for replay on IG, and we'll probably share a few segments on Twitter as well. So find us on all platforms. This is the first episode, and we plan to have many special guests, and the turn up is only going to get better over time. So I'm so grateful to have you incredible ladies join us on the platform. So grateful to all of you out there. Until then, think black, live black unapologetically. This is Black People Be Knowing, and we out. Peace, y'all.
Thank you for your vision, CJ.
Thank you, ladies.
Bye.
Yes.
Bye.